vehicle called the Hido-1 collected biological samples at different sea levels, including some unknown species.
10,935 meters down. Total darkness. Pressure powerful enough to crush almost anything humans have ever built. But when cameras finally reached the bottom of the Mariana Trench, they recorded something that simply should not have been there. It was not drifting with the current. It was not buried beneath the mud. It was alive. For decades, scientists believed the deepest parts of the ocean were lifeless. It was simply too cold, too dark, and too crushing for life to survive. And the moment researchers finally looked closely enough, everything they thought they knew about the limits of life began to fall apart. This is the real story of the expedition that changed our understanding of the deepest place on Earth. Let's get into it. The deepest place on Earth. The Mariana Trench sits in the western Pacific Ocean, a few hundred kilometers east of the Mariana Islands. It's a long, curved scar in the ocean floor that stretches roughly 2,550 kilometers. The deepest point of this trench is called the Challenger Deep. It drops to approximately 10,935 meters below the surface. To put it in perspective just how far down that is, think about it like this. Imagine you put Mount Everest inside the Challenger Deep. You can put a second mountain nearly a mile tall directly on top of Everest's highest point and still not reach the surface. Stop and think about what that kind of depth actually means for anything trying to survive down there. The pressure at that depth is more than 1,000 times what you feel standing at sea level. Scientists have said it is roughly equivalent to the weight of 50 jumbo jets pressing down on a single point. The water stays just above freezing temperature, and there's no light down there at all. Sunlight stops penetrating seawater at around 1,000 meters. The Challenger Deep is nearly 11 times deeper than that. Given all of this, it's not hard to believe that many of the vessels we have specifically made to get to the bottom have completely failed and imploded. Only a handful of crewed vehicles in human history have ever reached the very bottom of the Challenger Deep. The first time anyone got to the very bottom was in 1960, when Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh rowed a vessel called the Trieste all the way down. The trip to the bottom took nearly 5 hours. They could only stay down there for about 20 minutes before they were forced to come back up. No one went back down for the next 35 years. Even today, fewer than 30 people have ever been to the deepest point of the ocean. That is fewer than the number of people we have put on the moon. That tells you how difficult it is just getting to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. And actually surviving down there? That should be impossible. For decades, scientists have agreed with that statement. They said that the conditions are simply too harsh for life. Nothing could survive down there. That was the general assumption. Everyone believed it wholeheartedly. Until the Japanese Marine Research Agency, JAMSTEC, made a remotely operated vehicle capable of reaching the bottom of Challenger Deep in 1995. They named it Kaiko, and the footage that Kaiko showed shocked everyone. It forced scientists to rethink the basic rules of what a body can survive, starting with a fish that by every normal standard should not exist. The fish built by pressure. When the Japanese recovered actual video footage of the Mariana Trench, no one could believe what they were seeing. Fish were living and even thriving 8,000 meters deep in the sea. This was the deepest living fish ever recorded at the time. It was given the name Mariana snailfish and formally described and named in 2017 as Pseudoliparus suaire. At first glance, it doesn't look like it belongs in a place this hostile. The snailfish has a small, soft, almost gelatinous body with no hard scales. Its skin is so translucent you can see the liver from the outside. It looks like something you'd expect to find in a shallow tide pool, not at crushing depths where nothing should survive. These snailfishes move in loose clusters along the seafloor. They hunt shrimp and other small invertebrates that live down there with them. This is where the story gets strange. If you bring a Mariana snailfish up to the surface, its body falls apart. Not because it's fragile, but because its entire structure is built around the assumption that it will always be under enormous pressure. Researchers studying the fish found that its cells have loaded up on a compound called TMAO. This helps stabilize the fish's proteins against the pressure at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. If not for this, the pressure would otherwise crush them apart instantly. The deeper these fish live, the more TMAO researchers find packed into their tissue. At extreme depths, that crushing pressure is the same force holding this fish's body together. Take the pressure away, and that structure becomes unstable. Think about what that really means. This isn't an animal merely tolerating extreme pressure. It's an animal that is literally built by the pressure. And the snailfish was only the first confirmed resident that made scientists rethink what survival down there actually looks like. Because if a fish this fragile-looking can hold together at these depths, the next question that comes to mind is what happens to something that doesn't rely on softness to survive? And as it turns out, one of the trench's smallest residents solved that problem in a way that sounds more like metallurgy than biology. The armored shrimp. The depths below 6,000 meters are called hadal zones. In these zones, researchers found something that didn't make sense. Shrimp-like creatures called amphipods. Some measured close to a foot long, others were smaller. One of these was the Hirundelia gigas. It is only about 3 centimeters long. Japanese researchers analyzing its shell found something almost unheard of in biology: aluminum woven directly into its skeleton. Normally, amphipods build their shells from calcium carbonate, the same material in seashells and coral. But past a certain depth, the crushing pressure and corrosive trench water start dissolving calcium carbonate before it can even harden. The Hirundelia gigas protects the calcium from dissolving in a very innovative manner. It starts by pulling trace aluminum out of the surrounding sediment and converting it into a protective gel. That gel coats its shell and shields the calcium carbonate underneath. It's the first known organism on Earth to use this particular biological trick. Scientists have suggested it could even inspire new, more environmentally friendly ways to produce aluminum industrially. Picture that for a second: a tiny scavenger living at the single deepest point on the planet that manufactures its own metal-reinforced armor out of mud. It sounds like something out of science fiction, and yet it's real, verified, published science. And it still isn't the strangest biology the trench has produced. Most single-celled organisms are invisible to the naked eye. You need a microscope just to confirm they exist. In the Mariana Trench, that rule breaks down completely. A cell the size of a mango. During the expedition, the researchers from the same Japanese agency as the one that made Kaiko also used free-falling camera landers to survey the Mariana Trench. They spotted large, pale structures sitting on the ocean floor at a depth of 10,600 meters. Some measured over 10 centimeters across, roughly the size of a mango. These are unicellular organisms called xenophyophores, and it was the deepest confirmed sighting of them ever recorded. Nobody fully understands how a structure built from single cells can grow this large. The leading theory is that its size might be the survival strategy itself. A bigger structure has more surface area, and more surface area means more opportunity to absorb whatever scarce nutrients happen to drift by. But what makes them strange isn't just their size, it's what they are. A xenophyophore is, by definition, a single-celled organism. But unlike a typical cell, which contains one nucleus, a xenophyophore contains many nuclei crammed into that same single cell. Imagine a single biological unit doing the job that would normally require an entire multicellular organism. It's a genuinely strange thing to sit with. But the trench isn't limited to things that sit still on the seafloor. Some of what researchers have filmed down there moves, waits, and hunts. One particular discovery left an entire expedition team unable to put a name to what they were looking at. The jellyfish with no name. A team of researchers from Jamstek was exploring a region near the trench informally named the Enigma Seamount. They were using a remotely operated vehicle to film at a depth of 3,700 meters. All of a sudden, something drifted directly into frame that nobody on the team recognized. It had long, thin, trailing tentacles and a bell-shaped body that stayed almost perfectly still in the water. Unlike jellyfish that actively pulse and drift in search of prey, this one held its tentacles outstretched and motionless. The classic posture of an ambush predator, waiting for something smaller to drift within reach. Inside its body, red canals seem to connect patches of bright yellow, which researchers believe are its gonads. The team noted that these bright patches appeared to shimmer during filming. Scientists identified the animal as belonging to a known group of jellyfish called Crossota. But this specific species had never been documented before and has still never been formally classified. It's easy to let a detail like this slide past without really registering it. We have actual video footage, recorded and time-stamped, of a living animal in our own ocean that scientists still cannot definitively name years later. Entire space agencies are operating on multi-billion-dollar telescope programs scanning galaxies trillions of kilometers away. They are hoping to detect even the faintest signature that life might exist somewhere out there. Meanwhile, there's an unclassified animal drifting through darkness less than 4 kilometers beneath a research ship, and nobody can tell you exactly what it is. That's not a knock on the scientists. It's a reflection of just how little of our own planet we've actually explored. And the unnamed jellyfish isn't an isolated anomaly. It's a symptom of something much bigger happening in the trench. Entire ecosystems are thriving down there, using a method of generating energy that we never thought possible. Life without the sunlight. Sunlight is something most of us take for granted. Nearly every living thing on the Earth depends, directly or indirectly, on sunlight. Plants use it to grow. Animals eat the plants, or eat other animals that ate the plants. Every food chain eventually traces back to the sun. In the deepest parts of the planet, that entire system breaks down. In 2025, researchers found thriving colonies of tube worms and mollusks living at depths approaching 9,500 meters. They were clustered tightly around cracks in the seafloor where methane seeps out from beneath the crust. It was the deepest known community of animal life ever documented on Earth. These organisms survive through a process called chemosynthesis. Specialized bacteria living in and around these vents convert chemicals like methane and hydrogen sulfide directly into usable energy. The worms and mollusks then feed off these bacteria. They either eat them directly or host them inside their own body. Researchers have also documented other survival strategies in the Mariana Trench. Transparent eels glide through the water in complete darkness. Their bodies are almost entirely see-through aside from a more solid fish-like head. Since there's no light down there, these eels rely on sensitive body structures rather than eyesight. There are also large stretches of the surrounding seafloor that are covered in a thick, almost carpet-like layer of bacteria. This bacteria breaks down dead organic material drifting down from the ocean above. It recycles nutrients so that almost nothing goes to waste. The scientists studying this bacteria describe it as one of the primary reasons life can persist at all, in a place with almost no food supply reaching it naturally. Scientists involved in ongoing research have pointed out that the trench isn't one single empty wasteland. It's several overlapping ecosystems stacked on top of each other. Each ecosystem is surviving using a completely different strategy, built up slowly over millions of years of near-total isolation. Life on our planet does not require sunlight to exist. It never did. That single fact raises an enormous question about what kind of life might be surviving on other worlds. Places like Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, is believed to hide a liquid ocean beneath miles of ice. Enceladus is a moon of Saturn, where plumes of water vapor have been detected erupting from cracks in its icy shell. Chemosynthesis can sustain entire ecosystems in the crushing dark of our own ocean. There's no obvious reason it couldn't be doing the same thing right now, beneath the ice of a moon we've barely begun to study. But as exciting as that possibility is for finding life elsewhere in the solar system, we need to pause on something closer to home first. For a place as remote, as deep, and as difficult to reach as the Challenger Deep, you'd expect it to be beyond human reach. A place that we cannot possibly pollute. It isn't. The trash that beat us there. In 2020, researchers described a brand new species of amphipod recovered from the Mariana Trench at a depth of roughly 6,000 and 7,000 meters. When they examined its tissue, they found fragments of plastic already embedded inside its gut, specifically polyethylene terephthalate. This is the same plastic used in drink bottles and food packaging. The researchers made a deliberate choice in naming the new species. They called it the Erythenes plasticus, naming it after the pollution already found inside it. They were highlighting just how far plastic contamination had already spread. Dr. Alan Jameson pointed out something worth sitting with. This was a brand new species from one of the least explored habitats on Earth, and it was already contaminated before we had a real chance to study it in anything resembling its natural, untouched state. Other expeditions to the trench have documented microplastics scattered directly into the sea floor. They have also photographed plastic bags and packaging resting near the very bottom of the Challenger Deep itself. Our trash reached the single deepest point on planet Earth before most of our scientists ever did. And yet, despite the pollution, despite the crushing pressure, despite the cold and the absolute darkness, an entire invisible world of life keeps expanding the more closely researchers look. Thousands of hidden species. There is a long-running international research effort called the Mariana Trench Environment and Ecology Research Project. From August 2021 to November 2021, they completed 33 dives, collecting nearly 1,700 samples. These samples contained seawater and specimens of fish and crustaceans from depths between 6,000 and 10,900 meters. What the team found was published in 2025, and it was astonishing. They identified more than 7,000 microbial species in that sediment. 90% of these species had never been recorded or classified before this project. More than 7,000 previously unknown forms of life had been sitting at the bottom of the ocean, a place most of us assumed was empty of life altogether. When scientists studied the genetics of these microbes more closely, they found something else worth paying attention to. Many of them carried genes specifically built to break down harmful products inside their own cells. These are the kind of products that are left unchecked in most living things and damage DNA. The deep trench organisms also showed unusually strong systems for repairing their own DNA. This is something biologists believe helps them survive constant exposure to the crushing pressure and near-freezing temperatures across their entire lifespan. Scientists involved in the project have suggested this kind of research could contribute to new medical treatments. It could even support the future of human space travel. Surviving extreme pressure, extreme isolation, and constant cellular stress is exactly the kind of problem astronauts face on long-duration missions. In other words, we may end up learning how humans could survive deep space by first studying organisms that have spent their entire existence in total darkness. For decades, we've pointed telescopes and rovers outward, searching distant planets and moons. Scientists have been desperately trying to figure out ways to enable humans to travel across outer space. And the entire time, the answer to that has been lying in the lowest parts of the Earth. Even today, only 5% of the ocean has been explored in any real detail. That means the vast majority of the Mariana Trench, and nearly all of the ocean beyond it, remains unmapped and unstudied. We don't know what else is down there. We don't know how many more species are down there and what secrets they hide. There's an entire alien world sitting at the very bottom of our own planet, one that's been there the whole time, just waiting to be explored. The Mariana Trench isn't some distant, hostile world we'll never understand. It's sitting on our own planet, mostly unmapped, mostly unexplored, and stranger than most science fiction. And every new expedition down there finds something nobody expected. Does the idea of an unclassified animal living in our own ocean unsettle you more than the thought of something out in space? Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next mystery we dig into. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.